most parts of the urban cities, most Nigerians have turned to sachet and bottled water. Another area which the Standards Organization of Nigeria has work cut out for it.
Well, as Standards Organization of Nigeria, and as the name implies, we do standards elaboration. So the first thing we did and we have done is to set standards for water, for different types of water, because there are different types of water. And those standards were set some few years back and were reviewed in 2015 because the lifespan of a standard, after about 5 years, it should undergo a review to check whether it's still very adequate for use and implementation or not. So those standards were reviewed in 2015. And the existing ones, we had about 3 of them. We have the one for drinking water quality, and then we had what we call the potable water. These 2 standards were now harmonized into one, right? And the relevant stakeholders were actually involved. Of a particular importance that plays in the role is the Federal Ministry of Water Resources, and SON is the Secretariat, and we have other relevant stakeholders involved because standards are elaborated or developed or written by the relevant stakeholders, which are maybe the universities, the research institutes where we need to get the data to elaborate those standards, and then the manufacturers, everyone that is involved, any relevant stakeholders in water is involved. So we have elaborated standards. We have another standard which is the one for bottled water. Because when I say the drinking water quality is standard that covers the public water, which is the tap water we have in our homes, the boreholes, the streams. So the scope is quite wide. And then the other one is the bottled water, which covers the table water, those bottled water that we have, the packaged waters and all that. So we have put standards in place. And then the standard is also being implemented. That's what we're now doing by the relevant stakeholders. And SON also does that. We have offices across the nation, and those offices try to ensure that water facilities in those states' offices, even including the grassroots, are visited to ensure compliance to standards. We have what we call the Mandatory Conformity Assessment Program, MANCAP, basically meant for locally manufactured goods. So through that program is the conformity assessment program, which checks your products against the standards to see compliance. And we have a lot of them that are certified to these standards that I have mentioned about before.
These circumstances only support the findings of UNICEF that some households in Nigeria actually consume contaminated water. And it's the Multiple Indicator Cluster Survey, which was carried out in 2017 by the National Bureau of Statistics in collaboration with UNICEF. It showed that over 64% of Nigerians had access to improved drinking water sources.
Okay, this figure comes from the multi-indicator cluster survey that UNICEF supports. UNICEF does these surveys in cooperation with the government. And my first comment would be that this is very, very alarming. Really, water received at the household level should be suitable for drinking purposes, and otherwise it would lead to waterborne diseases like diarrhea and cholera, especially when it comes to the fragile children who are the most vulnerable. But of course we need to understand why this is happening. For us to do so, we have to know the underlying causes for that. It's also important that good quality water is not enough by itself. It has to be coupled with improved sanitation and improved hygiene. And they go hand in hand, and they are all referenced as WASH for brief. So WASH means water, sanitation, and hygiene. Improved water source coverage in Nigeria is only 64%. When it goes to rural areas, the figure is even lower than that. It goes down to 55% only. And this means that 1/3 of the population doesn't have access to improved services. And 1/3 of the population of a country like Nigeria, we're talking about more than 60 million people. This is a huge figure in the most populous state in Africa. Now, even if the water source is improved, there are external factors that could easily make it unsafe, very easily. I mean, the presence of a septic tank. I mean, this is a tank next to houses where sewage is dumped. If it's in the vicinity of the water source, which is usually a borehole or a dug well, it might make it unsafe, as sewage will start to migrate and trickle through the soil strata into the water source and contaminate it. On the other hand, I mean, there is a phenomenon very well known in Nigeria, which is open defecation. Open defecation is a big problem, and we have almost 25% of the population practice this habit. And here, when we talk about 25% of the population, this is more than 20% of the population in Canada, and the entirety of Canada. It also, of course, it contaminates water sources when it's practiced near or around the water source. I mean, this is one part of the story. Of course, water is picked from the source, and it has to travel from the source to the household. I say that because most of the service in Nigeria, I mean, we only have 2.5% of the population who access the service at household level. So water has to travel. There's a journey that has to be taken. And within that journey, it could be exposed to external factors. It could be exposed to dirty containers or even unwashed hands. People do not wash their hands when they use toilets, when they change the nappies of children. And these are all contributing factors, and these could make it contaminated.
While the people wait for infrastructures that will make potable water available in the needed areas, Dr. Eze shares some ways to enhance the quality of available water.
The greatest thing we can actually tell Nigerians is ability to take our health, the responsibility over our health. We know that many sources of water that we have are essentially polluted or contaminated. So we advocate for water treatment. We have different ways people can do that. In most villages where people can't even afford filters, can't even afford so many other things, we have these chlorine tablets that are being sold. People can actually put in their waters and use it to purify the water, because chlorine can destroy bacteria, can destroy some virus, can do that. Then aside from that, there's this one that UNICEF promotes, especially in rural areas where they don't have access to many things. We have water filters. These filters made from different materials that look like cloth materials. But there are things that can be found in local markets, that people can use to filter their water. Although for that, it takes care of some bacteria, and some disease-causing agents, but there are ones it cannot take care of. But chlorine has a potent effect against so many of these disease-causing agents. So people can actually treat their water. Then the other simple thing people can do is boiling their water. It's so simple. Sometimes some of these things there are simple solutions that can, do a whole lot. So people can boil their water, before drinking. Just boil it, allow it to cool down in a covered place, and the next day it's fit to go. So boiling can destroy almost any disease-causing agent in the water.
A necessity that requires attention in Nigeria at this time, especially because it is part of the indicators of the Sustainable Development Goals. Water should be available and it should be potable. That's our big story. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ini John Mekwa.